All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Gervonta Tank Davis, they have a plan for him to be the face of boxing, which doesn't just include this pay-per-view. Stephen Espinoza of Showtime talks about the next steps for Gervonta Tank Davis, and I think that it is absolutely brilliant. And I hope that they do exactly what they say they're going to do. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Gervonta Tank Davis is set for his first pay-per-view appearance in, I bet, about 8 weeks with Leo Santa Cruz. They will be fighting for the WBA 130 and 135-pound titles. The real 130-pound, a secondary 135-pound that's held by Gervonta Tank Davis, right? Now, when their pay-per-view was announced, there were a lot of people that were like, "What? This is not, why would I, why would I want to pay for that?" Right? Some people think Leo Santa Cruz gonna Gervonta Davis gonna blow out Leo Santa Cruz. Some people don't want to buy pay-per-views at all, right? All that good old stuff. So they had some reasonable questions about it. Now, Stephen Espinoza, who gave an interview to Lance Pugmire and Mike Coppinger on their podcast, Lance and Pug. Please forgive me if I messed up the name of that podcast. I will not mess it up tomorrow because I will be listening to it on a regular basis. It was a very good podcast. Absolutely enjoyed it. He talked about the plan for Gervonta Davis and said that he very well might be back on regular Showtime, but he also might be on CBS. When he said that Gervonta Davis might be on CBS, I thought, there you go. That's the route that I think is the smartest. But let's talk about it. Gervonta Davis right now is probably, as far as Americans go, probably the number three American draw. Behind Deontay Wilder and Errol Spence Jr., there's Gervonta Tank Davis. If you want to look at like the draws throughout the world, they're the people that put butts in seat, people that are interested and have a lot of buzz around them. You have, in no particular order, because I don't want to get into who the man is and all that. You've got, Anthony Joshua over there in the UK. You have Canelo Alvarez, in the United States. You've got Errol Spence Jr. You've got Deontay Wilder, and you've got Gervonta Davis. I think that's it, right? So you have the big money guys are Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Errol Spence, Gervonta Davis. Now, some people are going to say, why don't you say Tyson Fury? Because Tyson Fury's not been a champion and headlined a card. He's never had a pay-per-view by his damn self, okay? Errol Spence Jr. had a pay-per-view with Tyson Fury, and he had a pay-per-view with Luis Ortiz, which did well despite people trying to act like it didn't. And then, of course, you have the Tyson Fury Fight City, where he was the champion. It was in Deontay Wilder's home country. He's the one that pushed the interest in that fight. And that's how I see it. Now, Gervonta Davis is on his first pay-per-view. So usually what you would say is, now that he's on pay-per-view, every fight that he's going to have is going to be on pay-per-view. I think Showtime is smart to break that model. So when Stephen Espinoza said, after this Leo Santa Cruz fight, Gervonta Davis might be back on Showtime, or he could be over there at CBS. Now, what that tells me, and I'm telling you this about Stephen Espinoza, he's my favorite boxing executive of the executives that I can actually know and hear what they think. I think Stephen Espinoza is a very bright guy, and Stephen Espinoza is a very thoughtful guy. He knows a lot about boxing, and this is why he's been successful in the sport. Because he says with that approach, which they were also going to do, by the way, with Errol Spence Jr. Not a lot of people know this is kind of more like a behind the scenes type of thing, but we're way past it now, so I can let the cat out the bag on that. I think I've already said it too before. That showed that well, I guess this is a PBC thing. That Errol Spence Jr. And Sean Porter was originally not supposed to be on pay-per-view because Errol Spence and the PBC didn't think that it was necessarily a fight where it should be on pay-per-view. But Sean Porter, my understanding is, insisted on it being pay-per-view, and that fight might not have been made if Sean Porter did not get that fight on pay-per-view. That's why Errol Spence Jr. was on pay-per-view against Sean Porter. But outside of that being um what do you call it, a sticking point for Sean Porter, it wouldn't have been on pay-per-view. So you would have had Errol Spence go on pay-per-view against against Mikey Garcia, right? Something that people thought because of the mix, because of the Mexican and black, two different demographics in the United States, that would do well on pay-per-view. So that was intended. It would have went for Mikey Garcia. It would have skipped over Sean Porter, and then his next fight, which would be Danny Garcia, would probably be pay-per-view. I assume that is because, again, you have the different demographics. But as you see, Errol Spence could be somebody that was willing to go on pay-per-view when it's necessary, when that extra, when that extra value is there, but then go back to regular TV or go to some other option if it's something where you're really trying to build your name, right? And that's what makes sense to me for Gervonta Davis, where you treat pay-per-view, and I've said this in other videos, but I'm going to say it again, where you treat pay-per-view as if it is something where you can take them, where it eliminates the gamble from Showtime, where they invest a certain amount of money and it's cut, where they can put their investment in, because it does still cost money to air a Showtime, air a pay-per-view card, but they can fix their expenses there, and they don't have to go really, really high in guaranteed purses for the fighter. The fighter can roll the dice themselves and say, "Oh no, I like this because I get what I earn," and it becomes more of a commission thing. But if you do that for specific fights, right, so you can capitalize on certain fights, but then other ones you can use them to build your name, I think that model, it feeds on each other. So Gervonta Davis fights Leo Santa Cruz in the middle of a pandemic. It's on pay-per-view. The pay-per-view does well enough for Gervonta Tank Davis to earn a significant amount of money on the fight. But then when he comes back, or in subsequent fights, if he fights on CBS, when fights are on CBS or NBC, right, those are some of the reasons why Errol Spence Jr. and Deontay Wilder got so popular, because they were able to fight on CBS and NBC. I can't remember if it was which one was which, but I know that Errol Spence Jr. fought on CBS. The other people fought on NBC. I think maybe Deontay Wilder fought on CBS. But at that time, you got 6 million people, 8 million people that are able to watch you on that fight, watch you for that fight. And if you put on an exciting performance and people are interested in you, then they'll go see you on Showtime. They know your name. If you push, if a pay-per-view gets out, they recognize and understand who you are. You get an opportunity to get your people in your cities involved, right? So if it's on regular TV or CBS, then everybody in Baltimore gets to see the fight. They don't have to go through illegal streams or go to somebody's house or pay additional money, but they can get behind. Gervonta Tank Davis, allow his name and his image to get out in front of more people. And when they have those in their mind, then the ones that when it's time to go on pay-per-view, a percentage of those are going to go over there and support you, right? So it makes a lot of sense to me. I think hopefully they'll do the same thing for Jermall Charlo and Jermell Charlo, where they can kind of balance the different ways that you go about, how you air your fight. Not everybody is going to be able to be at this point in time, a Floyd Mayweather Jr. or a Manny Pacquiao, where those pay-per-views were really selling based on the idea of the ultimate pay-per-view that they were headed to, right? But Floyd stayed on pay-per-view every fight for the rest of his career. Manny Pacquiao did not stay on pay-per-view for the rest of his career, but once he got over to PBC, he jumped back on pay-per-view. And that might work for Manny Pacquiao because he's already an established star. But Whether or not that'll happen for Gervonta Davis, I can't say it because Gervonta Davis doesn't really have a rival like that. Like somebody that people are like, oh, he'll beat Gervonta Davis or Gervonta Davis will beat him. And, other than I guess maybe Vasily Lomachenko, but Gervonta Davis is really the guy that is pulling in. Well, he's the one. He's really the more popular option there. But it could happen with Vasily Lomachenko because his name is definitely known and out there. But anyway, I like the approach that Showtime is taking with Gervonta Davis. I hope that he does not stay on, stubbornly stay on pay-per-view, right? Or that they even if it's success, right? That and it does better that they just think that they have to do that for every particular fight. Because I would like to see more people get to know who Gervonta Davis is and see the guy fight because he's a very exciting fighter, and that's going to bring more fight fans into the sport. But that's my take. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.